Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Brian, and today I want to talk about some drama. some drama that has been hitting up the dbrand subreddit for the last week over what people have called fatal design flaws in the Killswitch case for the Switch 2. I've been reading so many Reddit posts, comments, replies. It's been a lot, but I do it for you. So let's make this the TLDR for all of the drama. Now, I have personally never owned a dbrand case. I've never bought anything from them before, but I have seen their sponsorships and ads over the years, heard great things about their products, and managed to reserve my very own Switch 2 Killswitch case, which just arrived. It just arrived, which I do want to open it, unbox it, give you my honest thoughts, see if I experience the same fatal flaw as all the others. But first I want to talk about why everyone is so upset, why so many people are canceling their orders, what dbrand is doing to fix it, and why you may want to hold off on ordering one for yourself, at least for a few weeks. And just a quick disclaimer, this video isn't sponsored by dbrand or anybody for that matter. I bought this with my own money. They don't know who I am, so I'll be giving my own unbiased take as someone new to dbrand and just an outside observer. But since this isn't sponsored, it would really help me out if you subscribe to my channel. I'm so close to 1,000 subscribers. Give the video a like and leave a comment below with any other products you think I should take a look at. But with that, let's get into it. For those of you who are unfamiliar with dbrand, and I can't imagine many of you watching this haven't at least heard of them since they are a massive sponsor of tech and gaming channels, but they are a third-party grip case accessory company. They make some really honestly super cool looking cases, skins, and screen protectors for pretty much any device you can imagine. From everything I've heard, the build quality is typically fantastic. And with certain product lines, like their Ghost cases, which is just a clear silicone foam case, the kind you can get for 15 bucks on Amazon, but yellows and deteriorates over time, they offer a lifetime guarantee on theirs against any yellowing. As they say, you'll die before it does, which to me, any company that stands behind their products like that is a company I typically like to support. Now, I've never owned the Ghost case. I've never gone through their replacement customer support system, so I can't speak to how well they handle that warranty, but from what I've heard, they honor their commitments, even if those commitments are made in a snarky fashion, which is the other important thing to know about dbrand. They have this persona that they communicate with, whether it be with the content creators they sponsor in their ad reads on their website or even in their customer support emails. It's a snarky, at times inappropriate, kind of a jerk character, like almost edgelord humor, at times skirting the limit of good taste. They typically poke fun at the creator they are sponsoring, making them essentially insult themselves in the ad read. But then the creator also takes some jabs back at dbrand. It's a bit of banter. It's all good fun. I have brothers. I know this style of playful mockery, and surprisingly, I think it has led to some pretty innovative product designs over the years, where a joke turns into something actually unique and potentially stylish. So they have this touch grass product line that I was really tempted to get, where you could put essentially an AstroTurf skin on your device, like a soft putting green on your MacBook or whatever. The joke being people who are chronically online don't ever go outside and touch grass, which I know explaining memes makes me sound like an old man, but I am what I am. Anyway, I don't mind the humor at all, because they seem to me like big softies underneath. Genuinely, they seem like an honorable company despite some of their inappropriate jokes. Plus, everyone they are making fun of is in on the joke, and since they don't really have much conventional advertising, and yet I am fully aware of who they are and the products they've released over the years, I'd say it has worked pretty well as a marketing strategy since I've heard of them, and you've probably heard of them. Where it doesn't work as well is when they are in some hot water with their customer base and need to address product complaints. Then the snark can be potentially extremely off-putting, as we've seen for the last week with the launch of the new Killswitch. But what is the Killswitch? A few years back, Valve, of Half-Life fame for any longtime fans of the channel, released the Steam Deck, a portable gaming handheld just like the Switch that plays PC games that you purchased through Steam. For that handheld, dbrand made a really nice ergonomic grip and case that they called Project Killswitch, as in, look out Nintendo, the Steam Deck is going to kill the Switch in the handheld market. Fortunately, that wasn't true. And also fortunately, dbrand announced a few months back that they were preparing a Killswitch for the Switch 2 as well, an announcement that I and many others were very excited about. Like I said, I've never owned a dbrand product, but I've wanted to check them out. I knew I'd get the Killswitch if I ever bought a Steam Deck, so imagine my excitement when I heard I got to try one on my Switch 2. But it wasn't just my interest in dbrand that made me go with the Killswitch, nor was it the otherwise lack of high-end grip options for the Switch 2 at launch, but also that the design they announced had a number of features I didn't even think were possible for a Switch 2 grip. I've had this Skull & Co. grip on my original Switch for years. It's great. It's very comfortable in my hand. It's a million times better than just a naked Switch, but it is one big case, one solid case. As you can see, you can't remove the Joy-Cons when the case is on, and despite it saying that it was dock compatible, it's such a tight fit that the screen rubs right up against the dock in a way I am really uncomfortable with, even with a glass screen protector. Plus, it came with this really sizable case. It's pretty big, a lot bigger than the grip, but I get it. They had to fit the little handles inside the case. But this thing is chunky, and to put it into my backpack, it takes up half the space. So I'm not a huge fan of it. And the Killswitch seemingly solves all the issues I had with my old grip, plus has a couple bells and whistles that make it a bit more fun. For starters, just like the Switch 2, which I have here, the Killswitch comes in 3 parts: a main body protector and 2 separate Joy-Con grips, one for each side. And this 3-part function is their superpower, because unlike my old case, or pretty much any other cases I've seen thus far, where you can't take off the Joy-Cons, to get the Joy-Cons off, you literally have to peel the case off. For the Killswitch, you will still be able to remove the Joy-Con without taking them out of the case, which is kind of crazy. When they first showed it, I thought, how on earth are you going to keep those grips on? It's not like there's any room for it to wrap around. Plus, unlike the original Switch Joy-Cons, which physically slotted into rails on the side of the body, mechanically connecting them, the Switch 2 uses magnets, so the Joy-Con are never physically connected in any way. With enough force, I could rip them right off without actually damaging anything. How do you add a case to a magnetic Joy-Con without impeding its ability to attach to the main body? Well, as it turns out, you may not be able to, but we'll come back to that. The other features that really had me intrigued and solved more problems I had with my old grip were its dock compatibility and travel cover. When it comes to the dock, how do you get a thicker grip to fit into this tiny slot? I mean, this thing already is such a tight fit. It's hard to do from the side. There you go. It's such a tight fit. How do you add a grip and still fit it into the dock? Well, dbrand would say, you don't. Instead, they designed a dock adapter that actually moves the Switch 2 out of the dock itself. Instead, it floats out here in the front like a little Switch 2 display, while somehow maintaining the airflow, the cooling fan that is built into the Switch 2 dock, which is very important because that cooling is necessary for the device to run at full 4K 60 on your TV without overheating. That part, the dock, I'm still very interested to check out. I know there are some issues that people have been discussing on the Reddit page, but I want to see it for myself. I'm very curious. From what I've seen on their website, at least, it could be a pretty elegant solution. We shall see. When it comes to the travel case, they've brought over a solution they came up with for the original Steam Deck Killswitch. Just a clip-on cover that protects the screen, the joysticks, the buttons, everything, and also holds some cartridges. But once again, this is an elegant solution that is slim, sleek, and extremely practical. It will essentially turn the grip into a case. I'm really hoping that that works because I have this little Peak Design carry-on that I take onto flights, and if this could fit into that, I would be very excited. But other than that, it's just your typical ergonomic grip. With mine, I got the screen protector, which is much pricier than the cheap one I got at Best Buy, so we'll see if it is worth that price hike. Plus, they include your choice of Joy-Con skins, adhesive skins that can go right onto the front of your Joy-Cons, adding a bit of color and style to what are essentially just black Joy-Cons. But if all of this sounds so good, if these designs are so innovative, so elegant, why is the dbrand subreddit full of furious customers claiming design defects, lack of basic engineering research from dbrand, and countless people canceling their orders or demanding refunds? Well, remember when I said I didn't know how you could add grips to the Joy-Cons without impeding the Joy-Cons' ability to connect to the Switch 2? Well, it turns out that's exactly what happens. The grip causes the Joy-Cons to pop right out, or worse, the Joy-Con stays in your hand and the system falls to the ground, at least according to a number of Redditors who have the videos to prove their claims. The first post came last week, where a user by the name of Robadobflob put up a video showing how his Joy-Con could now be easily removed without the need to press the eject button. They now seem to be much looser and essentially come right off. He was worried that the grips might be pushing out the Joy-Cons so that they aren't able to fully seat in the body of the Switch 2. dbrand quickly responded to this post to say that the grips aren't changing how deep the Joy-Con can be inserted into the body, not unseating it or anything. They're just filling this tiny air gap built into the Joy-Con design. This is the message from their engineering team. If you're feeling a small difference in what you perceive as magnetic resistance, it's likely due to leverage. With the stock Nintendo Switch 2, there's a slight air gap, 0.5 millimeters, between the Joy-Cons and the main center console. With the Joy-Con grips attached, that air gap gets filled, forming a continuous structure between the Joy-Cons and the main center console. This changes the fulcrum point and gives you mechanical leverage when, quote, folding the Joy-Cons off. They're not loose, you're just able to apply the same required torque from a different starting point. To be clear, the amount of force required to detach the Joy-Cons hasn't changed at all. The force is governed by Nintendo's magnetic system. If our grips were pushing your Joy-Cons further off the console than the stock seating position, this would be true, but it's not. You're not weakening the connection, you're just engaging it sooner because the lip eliminates the buffer that would normally absorb the first few millimeters of movement. This same motion can be performed on a stock Nintendo Switch 2, but it typically takes more effort for exactly that reason. The stock Nintendo Switch 2 has a small dead zone where the air gap compresses before resistance kicks in. With the grip installed, the lip fills that space so the torque transfers immediately. But what does that mean? Well, to put it simply, as I said, the Switch 2 Joy-Con are attached to the body via magnets. No latches, no rails, just a magnet holding them in. To eject the Joy-Con, you push this little button right here, and they come right off. All that button is doing, all this little eject button is doing, is pushing the top of the Joy-Con away from the body slightly, giving you a bit of angled leverage to pull the Joy-Con away from the magnet. It doesn't shut off the magnet, it doesn't release anything, it just pulls it away enough for you to lever the thing off. You can even see, if it focuses, I'll do the influencer thing. Can you see that? There you go. See, whoop. See how it just, all it does is push. Just pushes it slightly. And that little, tiny little bit of gap, that little 2 millimeters that it pushes it out, is enough to make it easy to leverage the whole thing off with just a tiny bit of force. Because it's not connected, since all it's doing is pushing it off, you could, with enough force, rip this thing right off. And people have done it. People have done it. Watch Jerry rig everything. He actually gets so tired of pushing the button, he just starts ripping it off every time he does it. I'm not going to do it because I'm afraid of damaging my system. I know it's built to have a little bit of play, but I'm not going to risk it. So, but also, pulling it straight off, pulling it this way, extremely difficult. That is where all of the resistance, the magnetic resistance, is strongest. The easier way to do it is not to peel it like that. It's actually to peel it like that, forward. If you were to peel it like that, straight off, you actually get a ton of leverage. All the leverage is on your side, because not only is this a huge amount of space for you to put force on versus the tiny little insert, but also see how the magnet section is taller than it is wide. The second that you push forward, if I push this towards you, I could just rip it right off, and it would be way easier than pulling it off like that. And Nintendo, knowing this, built a design feature to try to lower the amount of leverage you have in that forward and back direction. And it's pretty simple. They just left this teeny tiny, very tiny air gap between the black panels, right? So the actual thicker, wider top body is gapped from the body of the Switch 2. It's why you can see that little bit of color, and even if I just pull a little bit, you can see, hopefully, that air gap stops it from being easily ripped off. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. Let me illustrate this for you. So if you've got the black part of the Joy-Con, the part that expands beyond the orange, right? Because this orange part, this part needs to be touching the inside of the body of the Switch 2. This part, the black part, should not be touching it. So here you have the Joy-Con attached to the body of the Switch 2. The magnet in the body holds onto it down here at the bottom. Since there is no case on it, you've got these little air gaps on both sides. If you were to put force on the Joy-Con, you have this little bit of room for the Joy-Con to angle before the orange part comes into contact with the side of the case. And because of this, the tip of the Joy-Con remains close enough to the magnet to stay attached to the body of the system. This is why you can hold a naked Switch 2 by the Joy-Con alone, and despite feeling some flex, the system stays held together. There is no flex, it's just filling this tiny air gap. It's even possible that there is some sliding inside where the opposite side of the Joy-Con is rubbing up against the opposite part of the case, as well as its connection plug in the center, creating more of a physical resistance, such that the Joy-Con is now being held by both magnets and friction. But if you add a case to the Joy-Con and fill that air gap, even on just the one side, instead of having that small but not insignificant amount of angle before the Joy-Con runs into the side of the case, you immediately start to pull away from the body of the Switch 2 the moment you create any angle in the Joy-Con. And while there may be some level of friction resistance, you have distanced the Joy-Con enough from the body to lose enough magnetic grip that the Joy-Con will release entirely. You instantly pull away from the magnet, while a naked Joy-Con maintains some degree of contact with the magnet for much more of an angle, so much so that it would take a significant amount of intentional force to pull it away from the body of the Switch 2. And that is the root of the entire problem. The engineering challenge they had to overcome. And it's also a challenge that Nintendo had to overcome. You know, at some point, they probably didn't have the air gap. At some point, at some mock-up stage, they were probably touching each other, and the engineers are going, wow, this will come right off. We got to add just a little bit. And this tiny little bit of gap is the bare minimum required. And dbrand knew that, and after explaining that the magnets are just as strong a connection as ever, you're just filling the air gap and getting that forward-back leverage, they said, having just tested this a few times ourselves, to truly get the Joy-Cons to detach under this levered motion, it honestly feels like you're trying to snap them off. We can't imagine a real use case where someone would be doing that. And that is where dbrand started to go down the path of ruin. They started right off the bat with the idea that this won't really happen to anyone, so don't worry about it. Even though they were responding to someone that immediately saw it and felt it. But after that first post, a flood of videos and images started being posted by all kinds of users, all showing their Killswitch creating the exact same issue. Some people can't even hold their Switch 2 one-handed like this, ooh, I don't like doing it, without the whole body falling off. But then there are some posts showing people with devices seemingly unaffected by the design issue. Somehow the air gap isn't being filled and their console is able to stay together even at that same angle as the defective ones. Others provided makeshift solutions like pulling back the edge of the grip slightly or stuffing the empty spaces inside with tissue paper and even sawing off part of the grip, which, to be clear, don't do that. Don't damage the product. Just return it if you aren't happy with it. Don't break it. And for days, while post after post went up as people started canceling their orders, then the cancel option allegedly vanished from the page. Then people got error messages when trying to cancel the order amid all this chaos. Radio silence from dbrand. No responses in the comments that I could see, no pinned posts on the subreddit, which is odd because they typically respond frequently with a lot of answers for a lot of questions throughout the comments, and they post for any of the big news. But that radio silence ended on Sunday when dbrand dropped an extremely long post where they addressed the issues that people have had. In this post, they explained the air gap design, even referencing this part of the Switch 2 welcome tour that explains how essential the air gap is to the Joy-Cons design. This, by the way, had been thrown in their faces for a couple of days as people accused them of not doing their basic research, literally just playing Switch 2 welcome tour. Explain in this post how the Joy-Cons, unlike any other device you would put a case on, don't just have one face that needs to be exposed, like how a phone, which I have a million messages from filming, but a phone just has the screen that needs to be exposed. So the case can cover the entire back, all the edges, and even potentially part of the front of the face, because the screen doesn't go all the way to the edge on all phones. But here, with the Joy-Cons, they have the need for two full faces to be unobstructed. The front with the buttons and the joystick, and the inside with the magnet and the connection to the Switch 2. Can't be obstructed, can't be obstructed. That is the challenge. So the question then is, how do you actually secure a grip to a Joy-Con? According to dbrand, you can either use a ton of adhesive, which they say would degrade over time, and as you put tension on it, pulling on your Switch, it will eventually rip the grip right off. The other solution is to find even the tiniest bit of that inner face to wrap some of the case around to prevent it from sliding off, because otherwise, what are you doing? You're just having it on the back and the outside? Like, you cannot hold it like this. You can't, it'll just slide right off. Now, the latter is the solution they went with, and in doing so, they potentially fill that air gap because they're trying to put a tiny little bit of lip right in here, right on the inside of the Joy-Con so that it doesn't peel off, but that tiny little bit is filling up that little air gap. No matter how thin it is, it will fill at least part of the air gap. Due to variations in manufacturing, some grips fill the air gap more than others. They do not deny, dbrand does not deny that this leverage is created if you fill the air gap. They are able to admit that. They just say there isn't a better option for securing the grip, essentially saying you either risk filling the air gap or don't have detachable Joy-Cons at all. But then they went on to say this isn't that big of an issue because even with a filled air gap, even with the instant leverage to remove the Joy-Con, you're not really going to run into that problem, not in real life. They actually described the 3 conditions that have to be met for your Joy-Con to come off, saying 1, you are specifically holding only the Joy-Cons in such a way that your fingers are making no supportive contact with the main console. So they're saying you're holding it just this tiny little Joy-Con, you're not holding it like this. 2, you're holding the Switch 2 with only one hand. And 3, your Switch 2 is held more parallel to the ground than not. They then announce the grand conclusion that nobody routinely holds their Switch 2 like this. And that is the statement that got them in the most trouble. That is where they lost the most customers. They go to illustrate this point with a number of images and GIFs and links to influencers holding the system in the more conventional way, going on to explain how when a video goes viral, especially a hit piece on a company or product, people will recreate it even if they didn't really have the issue themselves. This is like Mentos and Diet Coke. It's scary, it's flashy, and it's replicable, but it will never happen in the real world. Which, once again, didn't land well with folks. Were some people posting their experiences for the Reddit karma? Absolutely, of course they were. But also, yeah, Mentos won't accidentally drop into Coke, but you will absolutely hold your Switch 2 horizontally. That is just going to happen. But they do admit this is a fully replicable scenario. Anyone can achieve this result with their Killswitch on their Switch 2. That is, unless the grip is built as they say it's intended to be, which is thin enough to maintain some level of the air gap. So what they say in this post, the actual problem is tolerances, which means the amount of variation tolerated in their manufacturing, where a 1 millimeter thicker grip is okay to ship versus a 2 centimeter thicker, clearly terribly non-fitting grip would not be shippable. It would be defective. And at the end of the post, they pledged to tighten up their tolerances, which were already, as they claim, very tight. But since this is an issue that literally is a few hairs thickness between properly working and improperly working, they will release a new batch in July that they are certain will fit and work as they are intended to. They say that only a small percentage of people are actually affected by this, and those people specifically can request a replacement in July, but most people won't need to and shouldn't. And if you are going to return the order entirely, it will be at your own shipping expense, which, to be fair, is just their policy for all their products, not some punitive response to naysayers. They're not Amazon, you gotta pay for the shipment. That's true most of the time you buy directly from a retailer, but it is a problem if they don't let you cancel and you do have to pay for it to be returned. But that's where they left it. That was the end of their official response, and I can tell you, it did not make people feel better. First of all, it had their trademark snarkiness, which, like I said, works just fine in a playful jabbing of a massive YouTuber with 16 million followers, doesn't work so well when people are upset and you are trying to give them confidence in the product. At one point in their diffuse the situation, regain confidence in your product post, they called the customers a word that starts with A and ends with whole. But that's just their kind of humor, and if you bought something from dbrand, you know this about them. This humor is in literally everything they do. It's on every product page, every email, every ad, all of it. So of course, they maintained it through a product defense post, but also I get it. It makes the whole thing have an air of, we're right, you're wrong, we're smart, you're dumb, even though I don't think that's what they were actually saying, but it does come off that way, and actually a couple of the statements are kind of exactly that, especially in the nobody holds it that way statement. Now, that is justifiably a statement to be upset about, and for the vast majority of people, that is the thing that they are most upset about, not the snarky attitude, because once again, that's just dbrand. But while there is some truth in that the average person typically only holds the device in a way that it won't fall apart, certainly not everyone will do that 100% of the time. Especially when you are talking about a device that will be used by children. Kids' hands are little, and the ergonomic grip that they add in the Killswitch is a perfect handle for a little hand to pick up. Arguably, that is how a child would naturally attempt to hold it, let alone an adult. Kids are never going to take the conventional, appropriate, standard way of doing anything. Plus, you need to consider people with disabilities. There were a number of posts where people described grip issues that require picking things up in a specific way. They may run into the exact conditions for failure on a regular basis. And that's ignoring the fact that adults without any disabilities who have decades of experience holding devices, who know the fragility, understand the leverage issues, damage potential, will mishandle and drop devices constantly. I drop my phone 100 times a day, including at times on my own face when I'm lying in bed. So to me, the statement, "This isn't an issue because it isn't the natural way to hold it," is ignoring the human factor. And pretty much everyone agreed that this was a bad take. The outrage only grew. Articles have been written, the vitriol grew on the subreddit. And some people even sent threats to dbrand. Threats, actual threats, over a $60 video game accessory. But fortunately, all of the legitimate criticisms, not the threats for goodness sakes, but all the actual pushback has led dbrand to retract and amend their earlier statement in a follow-up post on Tuesday. They start the post by saying, "Today we're going to try out a new communication strategy where we both say fewer words and devote less of them to blaming you. Let's see if it works." Not a bad start. Not a bad start. That's the humor, that's the dbrand humor used in the right way. They summarize the first post reiterating that they believe it is a tolerance issue, that the grips can and will be built with a tighter tolerance that ensures all grips work without causing leverage. They also explain again how they believe that adhesive is not the solution. And I personally agree with that. I don't want to put a bunch of glue on the back of my Joy-Cons, especially if the grips will eventually fall off anyway, leaving behind all the residue. They go on to say, as easy as it is to boil our original post down to "you're holding it wrong," what we are sober to now is the point that you should be allowed to hold it however the you want, without detachment occurring. Which I'm glad to hear, because I agree. Does it excuse them for the initial post? No. But also, owning up to their mistakes is worth something. And what's more important than mea culpas are solutions, and they offer solutions. First of all, every single customer who ordered a Killswitch will be getting replacement Joy-Con grips starting in July. Not just those who had the issue, who reached out, convinced them they need it, none of that nonsense, which is good. That is the way it should be. This should be an automatic, it's essentially a recall. Just automatically give us the new grips. Don't require us to go through hoops, and don't say only select few will get them. But what will even be different about these replacements? How will they solve the problem? Well, once again, they say that they believe the tightening up of the tolerances should solve the issue, that enough people have shown that there are indeed grips that don't cause the issue out there. They are just going to make sure that every grip off their line is built in the same way as their best ones. But then they say there is a second, much more mysterious solution that they have in the works, one that guarantees that you wouldn't run into the detachment issue, one they call the holy grail of Joy-Con case attachment solutions. Boy, doesn't that sound amazing. But why wouldn't they just do that one and skip the tolerances thing? Well, they claim that the machine needs to be so finely tuned to make it that it could potentially not be possible to physically make it in the machines that are necessary for mass manufacturing. Now, I don't know anything about manufacturing or machine tooling, so I guess I just have to take their word for it. But it sounds plausible enough, it makes sense to me, and that is, as they describe, a bit of a long shot. They're going to work on it for the next few weeks, making their final determination on July 10th with some sort of test batch, and they'll let us know which version they're going to ship. So we just need to wait to hear back, I guess. Now, as good as it is to hear that they are offering replacements, whether they truly solve the issue or not, we'll just have to wait and see. Unfortunately, they conclude by saying they can't cancel the orders that are already in progress, whether they've shipped or not. The situation is still a mess. It's still a botched rollout of a product, but I do personally appreciate that they are doing what they can to make it right. Is that enough? For me, potentially. It leaves kind of a weird taste in my mouth since this is my absolute first time dealing with dbrand products, and it may be the last time you buy a dbrand product at all. That is up to you. That's up to all of us. If this is something that is either a win because they are going to fix it, or a loss because sure, they're going to try to fix it, but it took a whole bunch of blowback from the customers. But a more important question than whether or not this is enough is the case even good? Is the grip worth buying even without the faulty air gap filling issue? Without the air gap problem, without the fact that it is a protective case that causes new failure points, thus making your system less protected, is it even good? Should you be waiting to see what solutions they come up with, or should you just straight up skip the switch to Killswitch entirely? Well, let's open it up and find out. All right, so I think you just slide it in. Get that around there. All right, everything's on. And that's that. So mine isn't covering up the numbers, so that's good. At least not how I naturally slid it on. But that, whew, feels so much better in one hand. That feels better. Okay, I like that. Let's get the other one on. All right, and so now with the case on, that looks a lot better. That looks a lot better. It looks like the skin is meant to be there a lot more. Okay. I'm very happy to not have to worry about scratching the actual device from here on forward, even if they are more drop prone. Just kind of slide this guy on top. Oop. Slide that guy on top. Gingerly lift over top, and then a little, tiny little gentle push. Look at that. Look at that. We YOLO'd that just a little bit, but okay. Solid. So that's on there, and then now you're supposed to do this guy, which I will do for the sake of science. Peel that guy off of there. Ooh, there's a lot of adhesive on it. Okay. Okay, that's aligned. Okay, so there's a little bit of the actual, what's it called, kickstand. It's just like slightly exposed at the top. I get it. That's what is required to give clearance, presumably. Yeah. But hello, I've got the kickstand cover on. There we go. Still clicks just fine. I think that thing's gonna come off. I have no faith in adhesive, which is why I would not trust a Joy-Con that was gripping purely through adhesive. But there you go. That is the case. Let us find out. I am holding it conventionally. I am holding it conventionally supporting. All right. Hey-oh. All right, there we go. All right, mine. I'm being extra careful with it, but there we go. Okay, so mine isn't the worst. I don't have the worst case scenario. Some people couldn't get it even halfway. So if I'm holding this, and the second you angle it, you're good to go. That's never coming off. That's never coming off. But if I'm holding it due west, you know, if I hold it flat, totally flat, it will, no, it's okay. Okay, what a relief. What a relief. I will still replace it with their replacement case when the day comes. But let's say hello. Hello, that's me in the glass. I'm excited about that. This feels absolutely solid. Is there any more play? I mean, I feel like maybe I'm just looking for it, but I feel like I can see. No, see, I can't even catch it in the camera. Okay. No, this works. This works. That's not coming off left, right. This is solid. It's hefty. It's definitely hefty. But I can hit all the buttons. Oh, a case. A case on my Switch 2. What a freaking relief. It feels good. Feels solid. I like how it feels in my hands. I'm not gonna have my palms fall asleep because it's not shoving a Joy-Con right into it. That's great. And then they come off. They come off easily. And then they should be able to, because this is the whole point. Why would you care so much about removing the Joy-Con when I didn't care on my original Switch. Ooh. Now that's not seated right. Now see, that's where. Okay. Well, this is the whole point. The whole point of a removable Joy-Con is to have mouse mode, because this is one of the biggest things about the Switch 2. One of the biggest features of the Switch 2 that makes it different from the Switch 1, outside of high frame rates, 4K, all of that stuff, is the mouse control. But this thing is not seating fully onto my Joy-Con at all. Like, this is, the button's already pushed. You can tell because right at the top, that thing sticks out. See? When there's no grip on it, that sits flush. That is the indicator that you have ejected this thing. I can just pull it right off. It doesn't connect. Okay. That's not good. That is not good. Let's see if the blue lefty does the same. No. Okay. Well, to a much lower degree. What is it about the rights? Because it seems to be the right Joy-Cons in all the videos. Is it the same? Yeah, they both are mid-eject, see? That's a shame. Okay, but, I mean, it'll stay on. It's not coming off. You have to peel it from the top. But, hey, know that this thing is not going to fit. I mean, you can see the lights flashing inside, but that's just because they're little windows. There's no actual mechanism in this thing. So is it as important that it lays completely flat? No, I guess not. I guess it isn't as important when you're playing whatever it's called, swipe and roll. I can't remember what it's called. When you're playing that one, I mean, it still feels like, to me, I mean, it sits right up. It doesn't fall over. I don't know. But that is the indicator. It is not flush. So, do with that what you will. But on the system itself, I'm supporting. But yeah, right there. Okay, yeah, it definitely has some flex. But I personally am petrified of picking up my Switch 2 by just the Joy-Cons. So this makes it more rock solid. There's definitely some weight to it, though. I should have weighed the case on its own. I'm sure people have done that, but that feels good. It feels good in the hand. And this is the whole point of it, is you can go wha-bam, wha-bam. The button fully does need to be on mine. Yeah, the eject is fully required. So that's good. It feels the exact same removing these as it has for 2 weeks without a case. So I like that. Let's try this guy out. So I don't know, do I have a game? But bonk. Ooh. You know what? That is a great design. It's a great design. Somewhere I have my, I have a little cartridge holder. It's like a flip knife kind of thing, and getting them in and out of there, ugh, it's such a pain. They are wedged in, but this, you just push down. The fact that this has a little bit of wiggle means it comes right out. That's great. Okay, happy with that. And then it should just go like that. Yep. And then just go down and around. And that's it. It is now solid. And advantage, there's no way you can rip them off. I was worried since this isn't going to be in a case. I was worried that the flex, that the air gap issue, the whole thing would mean that you can't travel with it, because if this is just going to pop off Joy-Cons falling left and right. But since this is a rigid front, there is no way to get that flex in the back. Because you're not pushing. You're not able to push from the front. And in the back, you're just pushing up against the solid cover. So that is exactly what I wanted. That's exactly what I wanted. I'm happy with this. I am happy. I'm very happy with the cover design. I don't have my bag in here, but that is as small as you can possibly get. Remember, I was dealing with this before. It's much, much bigger. Switch 2 may be giant compared to the Switch 1, but with this case on, it's a fraction of the size of my old case. So that's a win, a win-win. I'm happy. I'm happy. And I'm particularly happy because as I sit here saying the little wrist strap doesn't fit right, I am in my mind considering the fact that they are going to replace this. So I hope, dbrand, if you're watching this, I doubt you will, but if you are watching this, dbrand, make sure that this goes down. That will be, to me, a sign of true victory. If that is fully flush, so I mean, you can see it goes partially down, ever so slightly. Oh, let's see, makeup influencer. So see, oh, come on, focus on my fingers. There we go. So ready? That's how it should be if it's fully seated, fully flush. If I do this, gow, it doesn't go down, but it goes down slightly, see? Yeah, that's as far, but it's not flush. It's not flush. It's not flush, so, you know, not quite there, dbrand, but you know that. I'm not the first to tell you. So, okay. Then the next thing that they next thing I purchased for a massive fortune was dock adapter. Let's look at the dock adapter. So, remember, why do you need a dock adapter? Well, first of all, that don't fit in that. That's why you need the dock adapter. That was always going to be the case. The fact that the system alone barely fits in there, it was inevitable. You were going to need to have some solution or else it just wouldn't work with the dock. And if it doesn't work with the dock, what is the point? It's even more essential than the Joy-Cons removing, in my personal opinion. I love to play it on the TV. I love to have a little Breath of the Wild in 4K. Now, this is their solution. To put it very simply, this is a USB adapter, right, for the Switch 2. And on the back, unlike the original was the same thing. It was just a fancy USB-C where it has a little guide to help you in, but otherwise the system was just going in, and then in the back it had the AC adapter, Ethernet, and the HDMI. But because it was so simple, you could actually get the travel docks. I got a little one from Genki, that Shadowcast, that worked great. But you can't do that with this one because as a 4K high frame rate device, it's going to get crazy hot. And the way that they have built their cooling, when you put this onto the Switch 2 dock, a fan inside here, inside this big part, ramps up. So if we've got airflow points up here and down here, and a fan inside here, air is going to move through the fan, through these vents, through the bottom, and through your switch. They're all one big airflow happy passageway. What dbrand has done, it just extends the airflow. So if this goes down there, and we are wedge Antilles, pull that forward, align this teeny tiny little dot, I'll show it up to this camera right there. Teeny tiny little dot. It needs to align with that little line right there. So unlike the regular switch dock, which will help you put it in, let's see, so I'm going to do this hard mode. Push it forward. I'm going to go down. I'm going to go in. I'm going to line it up. It goes in, and then it leans back. Done. I've installed the switch onto, but they say you can't. Oh, that's why. You got to go. Oh boy, that's really in there. Oh, okay. All right. A critique I've seen online, and dbrand has said this is not a one-hand solution. So when you could slide it into your switch, you slide it down, you took it out. There's like a little spring inside there. Little spring inside where it depresses and then will help push out. That helps guide it into the USB-C. It makes it so that you can blindly do it. You're moving back and forth. It's not going to scratch because you're not touching the USB-C until you've fully aligned the system. But this one doesn't have that mechanism. It's just simpler. It's just a exposed USB-C, and you know, it's not going to be, you're going to scratch at the bottom of your system for sure. That is for sure going to happen. So, but okay, that's how you get it in. To get it out, you do need to push down on the dock adapter. Otherwise, if you pull it, it's just going to rip the whole dock adapter straight up, because inside the dock, it's trying to release the switch. It was mostly resisting with just enough give to let gravity seat it. But okay. Well, this is good. This is good. It's a little jank. It's as not jank as they possibly could make it. I appreciate the build quality. It seems to me, it doesn't obviously match the actual Switch 2 dock, but there you go. That's the whole build. That is the entire, oh, we're doing it. We're doing it. See, this is what I'm talking about. It's finicky. It's finicky. Just like kids holding this wrong, kids are going to struggle to put that into the dock. I can promise you that. There is no question. But is this really a grip and dock solution? Oh, see? I left. That's what happens. And I was pushing down. I'm still pushing down. Holy cow. There we go. Woo! That is snug. It takes the whole thing right off. Okay. That is a known issue. dbrand does not deny that. They just say it's something you got to deal with. They're not going to fix that. I don't think. If I had to guess. They're not going to fix the dock being ejected. But once again, the dock is trying to push it off, so, you know, they're fighting its natural design. This is a third-party accessory for a very tightly built, extremely precision-made device, which is the Switch 2. So dbrand is trying to work around what are all the things that Nintendo did to make it a seamless, smooth, clean, fancy, futuristic, hyper polished design in the Switch 2. They're working against all of that. So you have to keep that in mind. If you've never kickstarted something before, when you kickstart something, you know it's a risk. You know that it's going to show up however it shows up. You know that it's going to be a potential failure, honestly, if you're kickstarting something. This is not kickstarting. This is a purchase from a known brand, from a major manufacturer in dbrand. They're not, you know, Apple, but they are a legitimate company. And they have made some errors, certainly. And then other things, I think they're just doing the best they can. Nintendo did not build the dock to accommodate adapters. They did not build the Switch to accommodate removable grips. They built this to work flawlessly on its own. I think if you are going to get a case for your Switch 2 and you want it to be guaranteed as protective as possible, you're going to have to get one that isn't removable. You're going to have to get one just like my old grip, and you're going to have to deal with the fact that it doesn't really fit into the dock. You're going to have to deal with the fact that you have to remove the grip to remove the Joy-Con. That's just the reality of how Joy-Cons have been built, both on the Switch 1 and the Switch 2. If there is a grip that will fit around the entire Switch 2, but also seamlessly fit into the dock, I think that would be, to me, a better solution than this. But once again, you lose out. You lose out on the mouse control. So, if it is a full grip that wraps around the entire device, that you have to remove the grip to get the Joy-Con out, is that better than a grip that potentially has structural weakness? Because if you're removing it from the grip all the time, one, it's out of the grip. It's like taking my phone out of its case. I don't like to do that because it's now exposed. It's exposed to the elements. So I never take it out of the case if I can help it. And if you're constantly taking this in and out of its grip, then it's in danger every single time that you take it out of the grip, just like how you may accidentally hold this in the unconventional way. The second you take it out of the case, you may accidentally knock it over. You may accidentally knock something onto it. That's just the reality of it. So do you trade a constant low-level danger, or do you go with the periodic high-level danger? That is up to you. I'm very fortunate. I'm very happy that mine do not seem to exhibit the extreme cases that other people have with their grips, but I can tell you, as even for 1 second, I accidentally held it just by the one Joy-Con, and I could feel the flexing happening. I could feel the leveraging happening. It stayed together, but I could feel it. I am very curious what they will be delivering in July. I hope that they reveal whatever it is, this mysterious holy grail magic solution that doesn't get in the way of the air gap whatsoever, but I'm not going to hold my breath for that one. I will check back in with you. I will follow up after they announce in July what their solution is. I will also follow up when I receive said solution. Hopefully it solves it completely. Hopefully there is no one out there who thinks that their system is in more danger with a dbrand case on than it was with no case whatsoever. As it stands right now, the way I have set up my Switch in this exact fashion with the V1 grips, it is less stable, undeniably, than when it was just a plain Switch 2. That is the reality. dbrand's not denying that. That is just how it is. And is that something I am comfortable with leaving this case on? For me, yes. I don't have a little one. I don't have little hands running around trying to grab this out of my hands. I already was petrified. I was already petrified to hold it just by the Joy-Con after watching Jerry Rig Everything pull his off with such ease. I've been just grabbing it literally like this every single time I come in and out of the dock. And if I pick it up like this, that is how I feel better about it. So I'll probably keep doing that unless I have the travel case on, at which point, now this baby, sturdy. Oh, I feel so good. This is never coming off. There is no amount of flex that is occurring because it has a solid front. So that If you got yours, if you get yours and you have the cover and you are at all worried about it sitting somewhere and a child or anyone else picking it up by just the Joy-Con, just know, if you toss this cover on, Flex is kaput. No more danger, no more problems. This is how you should have it. What do you guys think about the glow skins on their own? One of my big complaints, as I said, about the Switch 2 was that the Joy-Con are not as bright and fun as these guys. I like it. I'm happy with that. And that is all of the drama around the launch of the Switch 2. Should you buy it right now? No, don't buy it right now. Wait until after at least July 10th, but probably a few weeks after that, so that they can tell you what the solution is and you can see people like me actually try it and tell you if it is any better. But don't order a new one right now. In my opinion, I don't think you should jump the gun like that. For those of us who've already gotten it, I personally am going to hold on to mine until they send me the replacement parts. I also have the benefit of doing it for this video, so I'm not quite the normal use case. If you do not feel secure with a grip that causes weak points, return it. For sure, return it. But I would hold off just for a minute to see if dbrand offers free returns on the Killswitch. And dbrand, if you're watching, I think you should. I really do. Especially because there are people right now who are trying to cancel a pre-order that you have not shipped yet, and it is going to arrive to them with the faulty grip. So please offer people a free return. Everything else they've been doing, everything else dbrand has been doing, I think is the right thing. After that first post, everything else has been on the up and up, and I'm happy about that. I do think the build quality is great. I think it feels good in the hand. I don't understand people who say it doesn't. I don't understand people who think it feels like a cheap product. This thing cost me some real money, and this feels a million times cheaper than my dbrand case. If you have kids, don't buy it right now. Don't buy it right now. Don't buy it potentially ever, because kids should have the most strong, robust, incredibly powerful case possible. So get one of those if you have kids. I'm going to do a follow-up video here about my thoughts on what to do if you are giving a Switch to kids. So if you're not subscribed, definitely subscribe to check that out. And if you liked this video, if you found it at all helpful, give it a like. Let me know in the comments if you are going to keep the Killswitch, or if you're going to try to return it, hopefully, like I said, for free. And if you do come into the comments, please keep it civil. That's all I ask. I know this is a hot button topic, but let's just keep it friendly in the comments. Consider following me on Instagram and Twitch to get notified whenever a video goes live and to watch me play new games live. If you are still here, thank you so much for watching. That will do it for this one. Until next time, peace.